Welcome back, everyone, to Red Spotlight Entertainment. I'm your host today, Alexis J. Soto, joined by Mr. Peter Martinez. We're back here with the show that brings you all of the latest stories coming out of the world of movies and more. And, well, what else will we be discussing this week but then more movies that have released, both in theaters and in streaming. This week, we are reviewing one of the films that we have been teasing for a couple of weeks now, and that is the latest and greatest from Alex Garland, the creator that brought you Ex Machina and Annihilation, one of which everyone saw, the other one no one did. And it seems that men will follow in Annihilation's footsteps of being seen by basically nobody. $3.5 million. That's bad. Yes, the movie was Men. The horror movie Men, starring Jessie Buckley and Rory Kinnear. And then also, unexpectedly, because, and let's be real here, Disney Plus, when it comes to their original films, has really, and the expectation, by the way, from Peter, well, let's just say Peter, because he was the first one to call it, and so far he's been the only one to call it exactly as it's, as it should be described. Disney Plus, when it comes to original films, has been and I do not count the films that were meant to be theatrical, but then were dumped on there like Pixar. Fuck off with that. I am talking about the films that were greenlit for that service, have been associated with the smell of a dumpster fire. And that's putting it lightly, I would say. So that's why I didn't really care, but evidently I was, Peter got me to care, and so now we're gonna review Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, currently streaming on Disney Plus, starring Andy Samberg and John Mulaney. So there's that. That's gonna be our show today on Red Spotlight number 394. A lot of episodes. Before we get going, a couple of
We're going to have a very, very special surprise for the 400th
Yeah,
episode.
sure. Well, the 400, there won't be one. We'll see. Anyway, we'll just skip the 401. We'll just not even have a 400 episode. I do want to clarify that the title for last week's episode, Peter, even though you weren't there in person, it was In Your Honor.
Oh,
This was a line from Wanda Maximoff in the movie Multiverse of Madness, where she says, "You have exhausted my patience." And that's basically how Alexis Moreno was, how she felt like toward you. So that's why it was named In Your Honor, even though you weren't there. So,
well, to that point, I would just call her a coward.
Why would
she will say this in podcast, but not to my face? So,
okay,
somewhat cowardly, I would say.
Okay. Also, we'll be discussing some of these things on the show today, but look, these next few weeks they're going to be a little difficult for us to play catch up with because there's just there's too much content happening. Just this week in theaters, there are two films that I assume are going to have reviews for, which is Top Gun Maverick and then also the Bob's Burgers movie. That's just in theaters. And then, on top of all of that, it is a giant, massive week for streaming. We've got the long-anticipated fourth season of Stranger Things on Netflix, the first 7 episodes. And then Ewan McGregor makes a comeback in the Star Wars universe. His own show, Obi-Wan Kenobi, drops. Oh, and by the way, Star Wars Celebration happens this weekend. So there's so much happening just in these next few weeks. So I don't know.
It's a bad time for you to get deported, huh?
Yeah, and I'm leaving the country. I'm going on vacation this weekend.
That's what we're calling it.
It is, yeah, sure. That's what I'm calling it. But I will be back at some point. The problem is, when I'm back, a lot of this will feel like old news. So it's going to be a lot of catch up. So I assume, Peter, the next time you and I do a podcast, I have to assume both of us will have at least seen the 2 episodes that will drop for Kenobi, and I think also Stranger Things.
Why would you assume that?
I'm just guessing. That could happen here. Anywho, that's
Stranger Things episodes. Each one is that length of a fucking movie. I don't know.
Anyway, that's just want to let the audience know it's going to be an interesting couple of weeks where we play catch up here. Also, before we get into anything, Mr. Martinez, as I mentioned last week, I mentioned last week that he had interrupted our recording. He called into the show, although you couldn't hear it on the mic because he wasn't mic'd up. He was currently at Disneyland. So, since you have returned, I'd like to hear what your overall experience was. What notable stuff did you do?
The parking is atrocious.
Okay, where did you park?
Is atrocious.
Where did you park?
The wait times, atrocious. The walking availability, just to walk, just to exist in that park, atrocious.
No, but seriously.
You don't think I was serious in everything I just said?
No, but but you have more to say, so continue.
Oh, I guess. I went to the land of Disney. And honestly, what a narcissist to call it Disneyland. Like his name, I don't know. That's crazy. But yeah, I went to Disneyland. Yeah, there was some fun stuff going on there.
So this is your first time experiencing Rise of the Resistance. This is your first time building a droid.
Oh yeah, yes.
So how did all that go?
Long lines for Rise. Rise was a lot of fun. I really liked it. I think it was a good ride. A plus. I really liked it. I think maybe they could have had more of an interesting queue line.
Huh.
There's just not much going on in the line.
See, this is where you and I have different experiences because we didn't really have much of an opportunity to experience that queue because when our group went, they still had the boarding passes, so we just kind of like zipped past there and got on the ride. So we never had. I wish I would have had more of an opportunity to experience what's in there, but from what I just imagined, it was just a cave with rebel stuff in it.
That was it. Very uninteresting. And that's disappointing because Moreno recently went to Hogwarts, the land of warts.
Oh, the queue for the Forbidden Journey attraction. Oh my goodness, there's so much stuff in that room. I mean, not in all the rooms.
The wait line for that Harry Potter ride, fantastic. Yeah, it's so awesome. I would argue that if you didn't have time to experience the line, like if you're just zipping by everything, you're missing half the ride.
Yeah.
Because there's just so much with the pictures moving everywhere, the characters pop up, you get to see Dumbledore's office, and of course the Potter kids pop in. Like there's just so much. And with Rise of the Resistance, it's like this is a cave. I guess there's blasters in there. This is a box of thermal detonators in the corner. Okay. Like, yeah, they needed more. to really just be like, whoa, ooh, ah, as you're waiting, like, especially because they knew this thing was gonna have fucking long wait times, So I don't know, but the ride itself, really well done, really cool. I think the storytelling for the ride is cool. Oh, you're trying to leave Batu, you get captured by the First Order, you get boarded. You get captured as prisoner, the resistance, gets you out, and then you're trying to escape.
Mm-hmm.
That's great, perfect, fun. All the character stuff, really cool. And then I think I told you this. I'm glad that it was mostly like a ride and not just flying in space. Because for all future Star Wars rides, they need to veer away from that because it's just been done too much. They already have it with Star Tours. They already have it with Han's. Not Han.
The Smuggler Run Millennium Falcon ride.
Yes. And they have it a little bit here, where it's like, okay, let's pull back on the ship stuff. There's a lot more to Star Wars as far as rides go that you can do. So yeah, no, I really enjoyed that.
No, I mean, to me, it's a really successful, immersive experience. Like, to me, I don't think anything else has come closer than making me feel as if I were, like, transported to a Star Wars movie. Like, you feel, for most of the time, like you're in a Star Destroyer.
Yeah. It's really, like, when those, and it was meant to be like this, when you first get boarded and then they open the bay doors and then you see like all those stormtroopers lined up and the vastness of space, the screen. It's really good. It's really...
Yeah, the collective jaw drops we all had when we walked off and we saw what you just described. Honestly, that's the stuff that's really the best immersion these kind of attractions can be like. And so, yeah. And I also, although I think to a far lesser degree, but I still really enjoyed the Smuggler Run attraction. Just riding I know it's, it's a spaceship and you're flying, but it's the Millennium Falcon and you feel like you're in the Millennium Falcon. That was fun. Also, to me, my favorite part of the ride was seeing that Hondo animatronic.
Oh, God. Well, they got a guy in makeup for part of it.
Yeah, part of it. But I think when you're going into it before, you see him. And then, of course, the queue is the Millennium Falcon. Or I guess like the hull or the other rooms of the Millennium Falcon.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. The biggest issue, and I think everyone said this, is that they're trying too hard to be immersive.
Yeah.
I think. And it's like, peel it back. Just be
Well, if you thought that was
just have cool Star Wars stuff,
the speed cruiser stuff. Have you seen the footage that's come out of Orlando?
No.
The speed cruiser stuff. This is the Star Wars hotel. The quote-unquote Star Wars hotel.
Oh, yeah.
That is... There's almost no words to describe what that was. And listen, I know there are a lot of people that would love to do this over and over again. I would love to do it once. I can't imagine myself wanting to do it so many times over, especially for the money you're just sitting on fire for it. Because this is not vacation. This is work, it feels like.
Yeah, you're constantly moving. That's why it's not like it's a LARP. Like, it's a whole...
It's a live action role play, as you say, yeah. It's a whole mission, and you're part of the story. And like every cast member is in character. And it's like... Yeah, it's I think one of the reviewers I was watching that was experiencing this was like saying, It is just the energy is almost always chaotic.
I'd imagine so, right? Like it's
That
just
doesn't
constant.
and stressful, and like that doesn't sound like a good vacation to me.
And
Like, you're at Walt Disney World and you're gonna do this?
it's $2,000.
Wow.
2,000. And for me, it's so weird that like the Disney people are so like committed to like quote unquote immersion. How's this for immersion? Have some aliens just walk around.
Mm-hmm.
And
well, in your land, in the Star Cruiser, there are some really good alien work that I did see. So I mean, of course, you're paying $2,000, but in general, the land itself, the theme park, which is, by the way, the main fucking attraction as far as I'm concerned, that area, that space needs fucking, first of all, characters, but yes, aliens walking around to make it feel inhabited.
yeah,
Not just like people that are like, theme park visitors.
mm-hmm.
Avengers Campus has literally nothing to offer as far as like anything good is concerned, except with Mission Breakout. That is a wonderful attraction. Everything else is pointless.
Why are the only rides Guardians related?
I don't know. Honestly, I have no idea. But they get something right that the Galaxy's Edge did not get right, and that was they have a constant stream of characters just walking around the place.
Well, yeah, because it's easy. It's just like we got an endless list of superheroes. Where it was with Star Wars, again, this is why I've always said Star Wars is not Marvel.
So change it. No, seriously. They handcuffed themselves to this timeline.
It was really stupid.
Then just change it. Just retroactively go back and then have all the characters walk around. People want to go see Ewoks. They want to see Jawas, Tusken Raiders, all the Ahsoka, Mando, sure, even like Ezra, Sabine, Luke, young Luke, old Luke. It doesn't matter. Just bring all of them in. People want to see characters.
And I think it could have been. You could have just done something. You could have just said like, this is a space station representative. This is a massive space station representative of all the different worlds, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like on this station, here's where Tatooine world is, representatives of Tatooine and just different planets, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because the fact that they don't have the Mandalorian walking around with like a little puppeted baby Yoda is insane. That's insane that they can't do that, or they won't do that. The fact that you don't have his ship anywhere, ridiculous. And by the way, they actually are doing the same thing too with Avengers. Like, I'm sorry, I feel like they're really fucking up. Like, they
are. This is not a controversial opinion. What you're saying is not anything new. We've been saying this for years.
Yeah.
Avengers Campus may be the single biggest fuck up they ever have. Marvel is the single biggest cash cow the Disney studio has. And as far as what they've been able to do that with the parks, which is another one of their big cash cows, that company, it is a piss poor embarrassment, if you ask me, with what Avengers Campus is. First of all, it is a lackluster, ugly collection of buildings that amount to nothing. Mm-hmm. There is there's nothing creative about it, and I would be forgiving of that if you at least brought the money to invest in wonderful rides. And guess what? You didn't.
Except for Guardians.
Except for Guardians, which is, in my view, a masterpiece of a theme park attraction. Then you have that Spider-Man, which is just Toy Story Midway Mania, like with a makeover. There was, at some point, the promise of a large-scale e-ticket Avengers attraction that has since been scrapped. And I guess that's that.
Wow.
What a disaster, in my view.
That's embarrassing.
It is embarrassing. And they should be, honestly ashamed of themselves. I hate that. I hate it.
The biggest theme park company in the world with the biggest cash cow movie franchise in the world, and they can't do shit with. And I told you, it's the same with like Star Wars. don't handcuff yourself to any, like, this idea of like, oh, it's Avengers camp. Like they try to be too realistic. It's like, okay, well, why would they all be here? Oh, it's a campus to learn. I don't know. But even that's really stupid. Like a campus for Avengers. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's some CW title shit. What they should have done is you could go two routes, right? You could say like the Collector has collected different worlds, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're in the Collector's vault, and he's collected different places throughout the galaxy, including Earth and planets and whatever. Or, and I actually think this is the cool thing, when you're in the Avengers Marvel, really the Marvel section, you go through portals, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you could have like gates that have the Doctor Strange portal thing.
Mm-hmm.
And you walk through, and you're in Avengers New York, right? And there's the Avengers Tower, and then you walk out, you go to another portal, and you're in what do you call it? Like Xandar.
Yeah.
And you just keep doing shit like that. Another one, you're at where Thor's from,
Asgard,
right? Like, wouldn't that be cool?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Whatever.
No, it's whatever. And I mean, it should, go. It should not go unmentioned that lately, these last few years, Disney Imagineering has been handcuffed. It's not just a matter of budget cuts, but the new CEO, Bob Chapek, does not value the worth of Imagineers, not since he was the head of the parks division. He has cut their budgets particularly in half. And as of recently, he banished them to Florida, forced them to move to Florida with the guise of like, oh, you're going to get a fancy new building over there. The CEO of the Walt Disney Company is openly antagonistic to Walt Disney Imagineering. Think about that.
Yeah.
I mean,
but to be fair, even Bob Iger didn't get this right.
Yeah, sure.
After Avengers was the biggest movie in the world at the time.
Yeah.
They should have immediately
They should have jumped on it. You're right. They should have. Yeah.
Because that's what they did with Star Wars. They bought Star Wars and immediately were like, boom. Star Wars land. Let's go.
Mm-hmm.
After they acquired Avengers and it was the biggest movie in the world, why didn't they do anything with? They didn't. Like, Endgame, literally biggest money-making movie of all time. What the fuck?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay. One of the things I didn't want to move on before we get off of this was something that continues to go unmentioned in all circles when it comes to the Star Wars community. What does go mentioned is, the slavish adoration for Mando, Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni. Maybe you'll get in like, oh, I love characters like Cassian Andor. I love Rogue One. I love the Rosario Dawson Ahsoka. Isn't it so cool? Boba Fett, yeah. It's never talked about. Rey, The Last Jedi, the sequel films.
Boo.
And yet, every time you come back from Disney, you seemingly have the exact same thing to report. And that is, the kids, by the way, the primary audience for which these films are intended for, I don't give a fuck who that pisses off. The creator of Star Wars himself has said this several times over. Star Wars is for kids. Star Wars is for 12-year-olds. They're the ones who these movies are made for with the intent for them to get the most amount of enjoyment out of these films. And every time you come back from these parks, Peter, you say the same thing. The kids, this generation, love these characters. Whereas the rest of the fandom, I'm not even sure they'd want to admit it if they saw it. Because they so hate the sequel trilogy. They want to cling on to this like narrative that like, oh, Kathy, she fucked it up. And of course, Disney ruined the Star Wars movies and all these like bullshit narratives. In which, you know what? I would be far more willing to be like to engage with it if like, I don't know. There's, I think, a lot of legitimate hate that should be thrown at Kathy, that should be thrown at JJ. But instead, we're just like, well, you know, it's Disney, oh, and then also fuck Ruben Johnson. That's where it always goes back to. And you know what? Fuck them.
Sure, yeah.
Are you really not going to say anything else?
I mean, I assume I'll have a lot to say when Obi-Wan comes.
Okay, let's go on to the trailer for Thor, Love and Thunder. We just saw this just a few hours ago.
Yeah.
And let me tell you something. It has been a long-ass time where I have seen a trailer and immediately just be so reaffirmed in the statement I would say next. And that is, this looks fucking great. This looks like a great movie. Not a great TV episode, you know? Not another who gives a fuck misadventure of, you know, meaningless empty pap that is so vapid and lifeless and, you know, ugly and poorly made. This looks like the best of what the Marvel Cinematic Universe used to give us, but maybe even better than that. Because, I mean, this just looks like a film. This just looks like a story from every, you know, sense of the word. It even, the effects and the landscapes look, I don't know, the best they've had in several movies.
It's the colors popping.
The colors popping, but they also don't look cheap or fake or bad or, you know, quickly drawn up or lazy. All of it looks fantastic. Taika Waititi. I mean, Jesus. Like, honestly, this trailer was so good. By the way, the first one was really good. This one was so good. I think that we're looking at the movie of the summer. I'm all in on this one. I think this is like my most anticipated movie of the summer.
I mean, at this point, yeah. No, it looks good. I don't. I really, really enjoyed the trailer. I think it's still not showing too much.
No,
I would say. Yeah, just everything about it, and this is the thing. I agree with you in that it looks like a movie. And by the way, this is everything I said back when Ragnarok came out.
Mm-hmm.
Not to shit on Ragnarok, because I don't think it's bad. But it was just this thing of like, I just want him to make his own Thor movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is it.
Yeah.
Like, it's very clearly...
well, Ragnarok, to be clear,
Taika
people
wrote a
maybe
story.
not aware, with Ragnarok, it very much was like, it was a Taika film, but it was a story that was handed to him.
Yeah.
Here, it seems like he got to bring his own story to the table.
Mm-hmm.
And with Ragnarok, certain beats needed to be placed at the end to prime the characters for the big Avengers thing.
The whole thing of Ragnarok itself.
Well, yeah.
Right? It had to be about Ragnarok.
Mm-hmm.
Had to include certain characters. It had to be this. It had to be that. I almost guarantee you a lot of this stuff included in this Thor, it was mostly Taika's. Mm-hmm. Because they pretty much all come from the same run of comic books. So it almost feels like he read that and was like, yeah, I'm digging all this. I'm taking this and I'm going to use it. No, it's there's a lot of stuff I'm excited to. And you know what? I noticed this too. I'm excited to see things in the film. But what I'm excited to see, it's not just like a cameo stand up and clap type thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I just realized it's been so long since it's been a film that's just like, I'm excited to see things I know, but from a character and story perspective.
Yeah.
Not just
spectacle.
just not even spectacle. I can take spectacle, but just from a soulless, here's that thing
Yeah.
type. Really, just the nostalgia cameo fucking ladder or whatever you call it. Because it's like, yeah, I know about Jane Foster being Thor, but what I'm excited about to see with that is the story, and the relationship between her and Thor. I'm excited to see those character moments. I know Gore as Gore the God Butcher.
He looks great, man. Christian Bale looks great.
But I'm excited to see what that means for Thor and his character and everything that's going on there. And I'm excited to see the filmmaking because it looks creative and fun and visually
and beautiful and not ugly either. Yeah. And you have to wonder, because I don't think it's a secret at this point. I have to imagine we might have not mentioned it on our podcast, but I know for a fact it's been spread out there amongst other podcasts or shows like ours that talk about films and Marvel. And that is, this is the first movie from Marvel Studios where they shot, I don't know how extensively, but they used the volume, which is the set that you see on The Mandalorian, correct?
I feel like I noticed where they used it.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
It's a thing.
Okay, it's a thing.
Like at the very end of the trailer. Because apparently whenever they interact with the gore, it becomes a black and white film.
Which is interesting. That's character. That's style.
I am interested to see if they bring in the symbiote stuff, but that's mostly from a that's the outside, not from a story perspective, but just from are they gonna go there business wise?
Question: is there a point to do so if there already is a symbiote out there?
Well, because what's interesting about that stuff is Null, because they can theoretically have a really big storyline with all that. Because what originally happened was you just had in the comics Gore the God Butcher and the Necro Sword, and no one ever said that it was connected to the symbiotes or anything like that. And it wasn't until Venom comic picked up those ideas and said, oh, this sword, it's actually the sword of the god of the symbiotes, Null. And there's a whole event, the King in Black, where he comes and takes over Earth, and it's huge. And I could imagine Marvel wanting to do a what they usually do, right? Their spin on it. Same with Civil War or Infinity Gauntlet or any of these other major Marvel crossover events. I could see them wanting to utilize it. But I guess what I'm interested in is the situation with Sony.
Yeah, I feel like that makes kind of a moot point, doesn't it?
Well, I don't know. Because again, how it was introduced and contract wise, I don't know how it works. Nowhere. From the Guardians, the Celestial Head. It was retconned that Null eons ago cut off that Celestial's head with the Necro Sword. So
retconned where?
In the comics.
Oh, okay.
Because Null is a very recent creation. A very recent comic book character.
A lot of them are recent from what I've seen. There are a lot of the recent ones got Disney Plus shows already.
Well, everything that this Thor run is the Thor run that everything this film is taking from, I think it came out in 2012.
Wow.
That's Gore the God Butcher is that old. And then Null is even younger as a character in the comics. I don't know, 2015? No, 14. I don't know. So yeah, it's I don't know how the rights work, I guess. Because they're so recent, I don't know if that does anything to the rights.
You know, I think you really hit the nail on the head, though. What you said earlier is this is the first time in the longest time that I can remember where I am excited for a Marvel film, primarily because it comes across as a film that's centered around the idea of a character and a story, and nothing else matters. And that's fucking exciting. Honestly.
The only thing I can think of after that is like Guardians 3.
Yeah, and that's it. Basically, from my point of view, that's
Black
about where
Panther
it's gonna go.
2 will be interesting just from a what are they gonna do perspective.
I don't know, man. Like I've always just thought post Chadwick Boseman's unfortunate passing, and also what's come to light, I can't help but feel it's gonna be a disaster. Maybe not like a bomb or it'll be hated, but I have a hard time seeing that film resonating the way the first one did.
I disagree. I think the death is gonna make it that much bigger because people are gonna.
I'm talking about from a quality standpoint.
Well, I don't think that highly of the quality of the first one.
I don't either.
So like
I don't. I'm saying I think this will be worse. I don't have much of an expectation. I mean, would this be a bigger film, a bigger event in people's conscious minds? Yes. I wasn't talking about that. I am talking about as far as the film itself as a whole and how well put together it'll be. I can't imagine this film staying in people's minds the way the first one did. That's not me saying I think highly of it. I do not.
I think the only reason the first one stayed in people's minds was because it was a cultural hit phenomenon. I don't think it had to do with the quality of the film.
And
you agree, so...
No, I'm not. I don't disagree with you saying that the film isn't great. It's not. But I don't know. I feel like a lot of people believe that film is a masterpiece. Like, full-heartedly believe that.
But I'm not talking about what people believe. We're talking about...
What it is.
What it is. At least for us. I mean, did you see what they're doing?
Namor is in it. I don't know why he's in it.
They turned him into a Mexican. Apparently, he's no longer from Atlantis.
So
he's from a sunken Mexican city.
Okay, I don't care. I
know you hate beaners.
I don't care. Okay. So, with Thor, is this going to be a love story? Because that's not what I thought this would be. Not that I'm opposed to it, but there were some moments in the trailer that make me kind of go like, well, what's going on here between Thor and Jane? Is this going to go back into a romantic entanglement, or is it just...
I think... Well, they sold it as a love story, didn't they?
That was my impression, too. I was just surprised because they haven't been a thing, and that romance is just not well regarded for it. Not that I'm opposed for them to go back into it. I would love for this film to go back into that romance and actually make it work. I'm just surprised they'd go there.
It's the year of taking those old lame romances and trying to rekindle something with them. That's what they did with Doctor Strange.
That's what they attempted with Doctor Strange.
Yeah. I liked it. Here, it seems like it'll actually be the focal point. Which, again, would have been with Doctor Strange if you didn't have to make it about multiverses. Which leads back to my whole thing about, like, just let directors make films.
That's a film that could have been great if it wasn't so tied down with what Marvel needed that film to introduce or do.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I'm into it. I dig it. I like that idea. And they're also apparently going to go into her cancer storyline, which there were no hints of in the trailer.
Not at all. No
But I
hints
have
whatsoever.
heard that they are, and from leaks, and I think even Taika himself has said, like, yeah.
Well, she's got to get those powers somehow. It can't be entirely happy-go-lucky. Oh, I'm Thor now. No, there's got to be some tinge of like...
Well, the cancer didn't give her the powers.
Yeah, but that's not the... I didn't mean for it to come off like that. I'm saying, like, she just can't all of a sudden have powers and, like, oh, we're doing this now. There always had to be, like, a trade-off to that of some sort. Anyway, Daredevil. So, Variety reported last week that Daredevil, a new Daredevil show featuring Charlie Cox as Matt Murdock, is in production for Disney+. To the surprise of nobody. Because, like, we've been talking about this Daredevil show for years, it seems like now. Like, oh yeah, it's happening. Oh yeah, they're going to do it. Yeah, we've known for a long-ass while. Now, where do we even begin with this, man? This fucking Daredevil shit. So, oh man. Listen, I don't know what people are expecting, but I, for one, am expecting nothing close to greatness.
No, I'm not either.
And I don't even know, honestly, why anybody should. Like, it's really interesting to see that Jeremy Jahns, who is an individual who I've long since dismissed, and honestly just, for I would say rightful reasons, as some kind of a credible voice in, like, the blogosphere YouTube space of movies, for him to be the only one that I would say has the single most accurate take or reading on this Daredevil stuff is really interesting, because from my point of view, there's really
the Jedi.
Yeah, there's nothing here to be excited about. Okay, let me read this. Okay, so The Hollywood Reporter notes that Marvel Studios' Daredevil project will be the first Marvel Netflix series to get a quote-unquote new, yet continued, whatever the fuck that means, show, making it unclear whether this is a full-on reboot, a direct continuation of the previous show's events, or a combination of the two. The big question moving forward is whether Daredevil will start off with season 4. There's no question. First of all, that fourth season that was all written for Netflix, you will never see that. That was never on the table. You'll never see that. But I guess what the quote was going to go into is, it's not clear whether this new series will start off with a new season 4 of the Netflix show, or if it will be a soft or full reboot of the character entirely. There are no signs pointing to whether Cox's Daredevil in No Way Home is officially canon with the Netflix series. Now that
oh my god, is half the article them just like, is it canon?
You know how these people are.
Oh my god.
But that's one side of it, right? The more important aspect, right, as to the quality of the show, which is what matters the most, well, we've got some news on that front as well. And let me be honest with you, it is not promising. Matt Kornman and Chris Ord have been hired as the official writers for this new Daredevil series. Neither of these people were involved with any of the previous 3 seasons of the Netflix iteration of this show. And they're most known for a show that aired a decade ago called Covert Affairs that was on the USA cable network. They also were responsible for, by the way, that show aired for 4 seasons from 2010 to 2014. That was the most recent work, by the way. And then also a film with Danny DeVito called Deck the Halls.
You've never seen Deck the Halls?
I think I have heard of it. I just haven't seen it. Maybe I did catch it. I honestly don't remember if I have.
You wouldn't, even if you did.
Even with Danny DeVito involved?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So
It's Danny DeVito and Matthew Broderick.
oh no. Oh no 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 no. This is far worse than what I had expected. I feel like this just is dead on arrival to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot easier for Marvel to get away with subparness because most of the time they are tackling characters that have never been tackled before, right? Like 99% of the time, that is what they're doing. So because of that, you know, people got nothing to compare it to. They say this is the greatest thing ever, la 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 la. Okay, fine. Not so with Daredevil.
Oh no.
Right. Daredevil had a stellar.
Well, first they had a movie, didn't they? It was a
run.
movie that wasn't at all.
We don't gotta talk about.
No, we do, because they had a movie,
okay.
and
They had a movie, Ben Affleck. But anyway, the show stellar 3-season run with apparently the 3rd season being a masterpiece.
Yeah.
I've seen 10 minutes of the first episode of the 3rd season.
Several of the episodes from season 3, mind you, were rated in the top 10 of all-time episodes of any Marvel TV show.
Mm-hmm.
In the top 10
so,
from
yeah.
IMDb user ratings.
This Marvel, I'm sorry, from what I've seen, Marvel can't compete. The MCU can't compete.
There's no apology
with that
needed,
level
Peter.
of quality. Like Moon Knight, I still haven't finished Moon Knight. I love Moon Knight as a character, and it's not that Moon Knight as a show was bad, but it's just like it's the umpteenth time where it's just like, if this wasn't in the MCU, I could see them taking these concepts further, and the action further, and the violence further, and just the character stuff further.
See, the stuff that you're feeling about Moon Knight and the struggle you're feeling about finishing it, and is overall like the frustration with this cinematic universe, with the approach of these creators. And that's kind of the hurdle I had with Multiverse of Madness, because all of the stuff that was there was just emblematic of all of the continuous issues I've had with them. With so many stories at this point, you become fed up. Mm-hmm. What you're saying there is why, in my initial viewing of that film, it just made me like, you know what? Why do I even come to see these anymore if this is all they're going to give me?
I get it. I do. I guess for me, Multiverse of Madness, at the very least, had teeth.
And for me, I loved Moon Knight because of Oscar Isaac's performance. And there was some other stuff
good.
There too.
It's very good. I don't hate Moon Knight.
No, yeah, you just... Yeah.
But it is that... It's just that thing of, it's like...
Also, you know how it ends. Because you know every single Disney Plus show finale, it's the exact same episode. It's just all...
That's another
It's all
thing.
action that isn't great. First of all, it's mostly passable, some fun gags here, but it really amounts to a big waste of time, a lot of really wonderful, like, emotional, resolutions that could have been had were, like, thrown by the wayside for more action. I love Moon Knight, but that finale, like, they really just, like, threw so many pieces away that I wanted to see from a finale.
They're 6-hour movies.
Yeah.
But they don't take the 6 hours to delve further into, like, character stuff and interesting stuff like that. It's literally just whatever the MCU movie version would have been, and then just stretch it.
Yeah.
Right? So there's nothing new or interesting or deep to it. Again, the only one who I think got around this was WandaVision. Mm-hmm. Why? Because 70 to 80% of the show was just this weird off the wall exploration of Wanda, right? Because it's these even the first 2 episodes are literally just television shows, right? That's so cool. And then everything else is just sort of exploring her. So it's the only one that I feel attempted to do something very different, whereas everything else just feels like 6-hour movies. It's just
And we've
stretched
seen
and
enough
nothing
of
new or
these. We've
interesting
seen with
added.
Falcon,
Yeah.
Hawkeye, Loki, and Moon. We've seen enough where it feels like wash, rinse, repeat.
And the thing is, a pretty good 2-hour movie, 2.5, stretched out to 6 hours, it may still be passable, but it's just it's just doing fuck all for my patience. You know what I mean? And then, okay, getting back to Daredevil. Yeah, I mean, the talent that they got to work on this, why? Why? And I mean, I know why, because they can control them. And honestly, at this point, I think, like, they know they can't compete. So what is Marvel going to do? They're going to do what they do best. They're going to throw in cameos. They're going to throw in maybe characters or want to know,
compensate or
have
distract you from the lack of quality.
Mm-hmm. Compensation and distraction. It's
That's
like
their
that
specialty.
whole second to last episode of Boba Fett.
Oh, that
The one with Luke and
oh, that
yeah.
thing. Oh shit!
Yeah.
I try to forget it.
Yeah, me too. But that's what they're gonna do, right? And there's a lot of talk about them using like the yellow costume for Daredevil, and I think they will because that sends a clear message. Bright, right? It's not this like dark.
To me, it sends a clear message. It's not the same show. Don't think of it as the same show.
I mean, they're never going to
say one way or the other. And clearly this...
That's why it's so annoying when people are like, is it? They're never going to say. Because they rather have it... They rather have it up in the air.
They would love for it to be vague. In case they need to, in
Mm-hmm.
case not. But I feel like if you feel like you want to connect the dots, you're more than welcome to. I'm more than welcome to say, well, different costume. There's no real good reason. I mean, obviously, they want to make it brighter or lighter or whatever. There was some...
It's a tone... I think it's going to be... What's that
emblematic?
Word? Emblematic of a tone change.
Yeah. And there was some person I saw on the John Campea show say that, trying to justify this is like, well, a lot of TV shows do change their tone over time. It doesn't mean a degradation, degradation in quality. Excuses, man. That's just a fucking excuse. Like, you look at the quality of what the Disney Plus shows have produced. You can't touch Daredevil. And a new version of Daredevil with the same actor, you're only inviting the comparisons. Like, it's just going to be nothing but an exercise in inferiority. That's how I feel about the Spider-Man movies in the MCU. It's like, and that's one of the characters where they had to follow up a pretty amazing iteration of it before Marvel Studios even existed. I just, by the way, over the weekend saw Spider-Man and Spider-Man 2. Those are some of the best movies ever made. Fight me. Some of the best movies ever made. And honestly, this should be at the beginning of anyone's discussion about best superhero films ever made.
My brother in Christ, I could not agree more.
And I cannot believe that they're
they're outdated.
Fuck off.
They're old. Like, it's insane the way that people today talk about films with like character and a sense of personality. They talk about films that used to be like that compared to today. The way that people used to talk about like black and white movies or movies, the silent films, right? Like, you're like, oh, get with the times. Those are old.
It really
movies.
pissed me off. There was this Twitter post that was being spread around. Again, maybe the best thing about Multiverse of Madness was the visual flair. And I love me some transitions. And then I go on Twitter and they're being like laughed at. That amazing transition of like Wong's head coming out of like, walking,
the Scarlet Witch. Yeah.
And people were like, this ain't the 2000s anymore. Get the fuck out of here with this shit. Fuck you. Fuck you.
I saw some people go after probably the coolest scene. Well, second coolest in the movie is when they're describing the dream walking and it's like transitioning in and out of her like doing the spell, and it's like the guitar music
It was
like,
one of the highlights of the whole film. One of the
Mhm.
highlights, and they go after that.
Yeah. And I'm like, that's so much
But
because
then they defend the crappy CGI on No Way Home.
yeah, and then people are like, I don't know what's wrong with that. It looks fine to me.
Like, why do you care about cinematography? But then here they are, seemingly caring about other aspects, and they have no like issue with going after that. Ridiculousness.
Thousands and thousands of films are made every year. Try to make yours unique.
And it's like, going back to the whole Spider-Man issue, what we saw there is Marvel, when you look back in retrospect, it almost feels as if like Kevin Feige knew, I can't make like versions of this new Spider-Man that are like half as good as those, so I'm not even going to bother doing that. But in like there are ways where you can like do another iteration, go in a different direction, and and the quality can be, as good if not better. But that's not what happens when it comes to Marvel Studios doing so. It's like the Spider-Man movies, like it almost hurts to talk about it because like I do think like 2 out of the 3 are good films. As a whole, all 3 put together, I don't care.
No. It doesn't help that every film is about the same thing.
Yeah.
Every film is like, now he's Spider-Man.
Nope.
That's how the first one ended, Homecoming. And the second one, now he's Spider-Man. And then the last one, now he's Spider-Man.
And look at that great ending for No Way Home.
Yeah.
And then I think it was just being reported today, the whole cast is now like in talks to come back, which would include MJ and Ned. And again, there's all the evidence you need to show you the fuck all with that ending. That didn't mean anything. We're going to go back immediately after to them, like remembering who Peter was.
To be fair, well, I know you don't care. It's 100%. I think it's Sony. Like, they're clinging on to dear life for anything. After the greatest movie of all time, Morbius,
yeah,
didn't overperform like they wanted to. I think they're just like, we cannot leave our cash cow, Mr. Tom Holland. Yeah. And to be fair to No Way Home, it was the first time since those Raimi films where I was like, oh my god, like this kind of feels like a Spider-Man film. But if you're gonna directly compare, right, it's like it's not the same. It's
not remotely to me.
No.
And I think that with this Daredevil, it's like, I don't know. I have a sneaking suspicion. It's not gonna go over well, and I don't think they at Marvel Studios are gonna see it coming. And you don't.
I don't think they are either. No. I think it's gonna be their first genuine, like, not bomb, but just
failure.
Failure in the eyes of like fans, where they're genuinely angry. Where it's like, this is bad.
It'll be seen as like, wow, you really ruined this character. Like, look at how great this was over here. Why can't you be as great, if not better than that? I thought you, Marvel Studios, were supposed to be the best when it comes to telling superhero
the golden
stories.
Child.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But that's not true.
No, it never was, really.
Because, like,
the fans believe it's true.
Yeah. They're lucky they never got, like, a really good Fantastic Four movie before they got the rights back. Mm-hmm. But, like, with X-Men, there were genuinely great X-Men films before. And again, I have a feeling it's going to be the same thing. It's going to be pretty good. It's going to be cool to see them in their classic costumes doing classic X-Men things. But it'll just be like, man, the teeth are gone.
Mm-hmm. And that's what that's exactly what the new Daredevil show will feel, is the teeth are gone. And look, I'm never one that says that you have to have, like, violence or gore or blood for something to be better. Those aspects or qualities in your storytelling does not inherently make you better. but that very clearly elevated the material. Their presence elevated the material in that Netflix show. And when you see this new show and those things are gone, you remove the teeth. You take the claws out of the cat. Like, what's left?
When the fight scenes aren't as good.
The fight scenes!
Because I have not seen any fight scene in any of these Marvel Plus shows that compare to the Daredevil show. Just nothing.
I just, like, that's the thing. I can't believe not a single one of these people who have, like, shows with so many viewers don't touch on on just the reality that they're, like, not one person that worked on those Daredevil seasons on Netflix, including the choreography team, are coming back for this. Why would you expect this new iteration to be anything like it was before? Which is crazy.
And for me, it doesn't, and I know you agree with this too, it doesn't have to be
the same team. Yeah. It could,
the same.
Yeah.
It doesn't even have to be the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can take Daredevil in a lighter tone. Daredevil has had lighter comic runs, right? More fun, more fluff. But, and I'm sorry to say it to the people who are hired, what doesn't make me feel confident that they'll take it in a new fun direction, have it be just as great, is the people they hired. It feels like they hired yes men yet again. I
mean,
this
hiring decision may be the single most confounding choice at least Kevin Feige has made in his entirety at Marvel, because you could say with most of his hires, they had one good project, one good story. Here, it feels like they got some dirt poor writing team off the street, like they were they were homeless and they just picked somebody up that needed a job.
I can get that for Echo, because who the fuck is Echo?
I know,
right?
Echo actually has some writers,
but they actually have some good creatives behind Echo. I saw that.
Echo has a Daredevil Netflix alum on the writing team. Echo,
what the fuck? But you know why Daredevil was also good too? They got really talented people to begin with. Netflix, they got talented people to work on it. And you know why the Netflix shows started to crumble? Because they no longer started getting talented people to work on them.
Yeah, Scott Buck, I think, was the beginning of the end. Yeah. With Iron Fist, which was immediately followed up with Inhumans.
Yeah.
The whole thing imploded.
I'm just so tired of this director made this one indie short. Let's funnel them directly into
the machine.
The machine. And I don't know, where did I hear this or read this? That one of the biggest losses of the mid-budget film is that previously you'd have directors, they'd sort of sharpen their teeth and hone their skills on these mid-budget films, right? And then once they made their way up to the big leagues in these blockbusters, they were really able to create something big and great. Someone like Sam Raimi, But because the mid-budget film has disappeared, you have these directors, they make a small indie film that gets some good buzz. Feige picks them up and they're immediately thrown into big budget filmmaking, which they have no experience with at all. That it's too much, right? And they don't have that experience to really hone their filmmaking skills with a bigger budget in a mid-budget film and then carry that over. So it fucks with them, right? And it doesn't work as well. And yeah, I think you can see that. I think what's his name? Tom Watt?
John Watts?
John Watts. I think that's a good example of that. Where I don't think he's a bad director, but it's just there's no no
Yeah,
personality.
no disrespect to Mr. Watts, but I feel like, and not that this would ever be feasible because Sony wouldn't agree to this, stupidly enough, but I would feel like John Watts, for his sensibilities, he'd be great for a Spider-Man Disney Plus series.
Yeah, for sure.
For the movies,
I mean, that's
not-
kind of what Homecoming was.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. Yeah.
But I mean, it wasn't till Homecoming that I started to see some interesting filmmaking, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like with the fight between him and Goblin, pretty darn good,
Yeah.
right? That whole thing where he has like it's in the same scene, the Spidey sense,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like visually pretty cool when he's in the rain and looking at J. Jonah Jameson just being like, this little bitch killed his aunt, and he's like fucking crying with it. It's like, okay, there's some visual flair to some of this. Yeah, and I think that has hindered him as a filmmaker. So I don't know.
Real quick before we move off the choreography or the action, David and I have been bitching about this on the show for weeks. We did the Moon Knight recaps. Both he and I very much like the series overall, but we have been very critical of this, like of their action. Really because for weeks upon weeks, it was a key factor of the marketing that they were hyping up that this was like the most violent series that the MCU had done. And then you see the show and you're like, what?
I know.
And here, look, let me pull up a quote from Kevin Feige about this, about Moon Knight and the violence, apparently. There are moments in the series when Moon Knight is wailing on another character, and it is loud and brutal.
Oh no, loud.
And brutal. The knee-jerk reaction is, we're going to pull back on this, right? No, we're not pulling back. There's a tonal shift. That, to me, you look at Moon Knight, and that's what Kevin Feige considers to be not pulling back. Daredevil is fucked in every way imaginable.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And again, I think maybe that's why I was also a little impressed with Multiverse of Madness, because I had been watching Moon Knight,
Mm-hmm.
and I remembered his comments and being like, this does not have the teeth
No.
that he claimed it did. And then seeing Black Bolt's brains gets, pop. I was like, oh, okay.
There it is. That's what I was looking for.
There it is. Like that. I needed some of this.
Yeah.
In
Moon Knight.
In Moon Knight, and I don't see why they literally had that mummy demon thing.
Mm-hmm.
That, like, let me see some kills.
Yeah.
Let's get scary. Let's get a little more violent with it.
There's no
or
good
even,
reason
yeah,
not to.
Let's break some noses. Let's see blood. Like, let's see something.
I mean, keep this in mind. And David and I were fully on board with this. There are many moments in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. that were more violent than Moon Knight.
Oh, yeah.
What was that?
'Cause again-
what was that behind you? Oh, it was...
It's my cat.
Okay.
She's
Okay.
it's that time.
Okay.
She's losing her mind. But again, because they weren't under the MCU,
Mm-hmm.
they could do some
Mhm.
things. There just seems to be this. It's almost like a child lock or like a child filter.
Yeah.
On the whole
Disney
the whole
Plus
series.
Oh, yeah.
No, like all of MCU.
Uh-huh.
Where it's like it automatically filters like specific violent acts to never show
With
them
Madness
ever-
being the only one to squeak through that.
with the only one who was able to like get past security somehow. But I also, like, speaking of Black Panther, I brought up, and you saw the scene, I was right,
Mm-hmm.
where they like slit the throat and it's just like like nothing. They just fall over.
I know, it was hilarious. Whereas you see Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., there's a lot of characters that get their throats cut. And you see it. And
you see blood, yeah.
There's a lot of bullets in the head.
And it's like, there should be blood.
Yeah.
Because in the original Star Wars, when they cut off a hand, there was blood. Why? Because blood comes out when hands get cut off. In the final fight in the original Sam Raimi Spider-Man, it's fucking gnarly.
Oh my god, I saw it the other day. They're wailing. That's the definition of wailing.
That's wailing. And slow motion, just blood just being thrown out of the corner as they're just having the living shit beat out of each other. That's what I expect, right? And of course, Daredevil. Obviously, there's like R-rated violent stuff, but there's very much PG-13 stuff too, where it's like that's wailing. And the same with Moon Knight. It's get violent. You can push PG-13. You can, because guess what? In America, we don't care about violence. You can push that shit. We care about gay people. We care about any kind of sexuality at all. So, you know,
and to be clear for those that are listening, that is a commentary on how Americans' attitudes are. That's not like Peter saying that's the way.
Oh, that's
right,
not ours,
or that's what it should be.
And it's not right.
No,
I'm just talking from a business perspective. Like, yeah, you're not going to be able to push the PG-13 rating for like.
Why do you think Lizzie McGuire got canceled? The reboot because Hilary Duff wanted sex, and Disney was like, "What sex?
What sex?"
Literally, that's what happened. Look it up.
Superheroes don't have sex. Look at what happened to Batman. Yeah. There's which is so weird because comic books, this is how you know no one reads comic book. Comic books are full of sex.
What's wrong with sex?
It's not gratuitous, but it's a human thing. It's an experience. Like it should be full. If you're telling stories about humans, obviously that's going to be a part of it, right?
Most people do it.
Yeah. I don't know. So stupid. But yeah, you can't push that, but you can push the violence. But yeah, there's like this filter. It's so ridiculous. I don't know what they're gonna do with Blade. Honest to God.
That's right.
That's another one where that's another one though where it's like it's not necessarily that the original Blade films are considered masterpieces, but they have kick-ass violent.
Blade 2 is fucking great.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Blade 2. You stack Blade 2 compared to like any comic book movie today? Please.
But that's the thing, right? Like what are you going to do? If you can't even push PG-13, if you're not even there, if you're not even willing to push that, fuck, like what do you have with Blade the movie? Why do it? It's going to be embarrassing. And honest to God, I really think Kevin Feige only greenlit Blade because Mahershala Ali came up to him and was like, I want to be Blade. I think it's the only reason he greenlit that movie. I think if that didn't happen, you would not be having anything Blade. Maybe he would have came out at like the end of Moon Knight as like an end credits thing. Like, we're putting together a team of supernatural heroes. But yeah.
So the moral of all of this is, if you're listening, I do apologize to let you know, to bring this to your attention. I love the Daredevil show, but there's no reason to be excited about any of this. There really isn't. So moving off from one property that garners no excitement to the other, also on Disney Plus, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You know, we had an interesting discussion, me and Kyle, before we watched Men, about like where we stood with Kenobi and, you know, what are the pros and cons about all of this. Let's just get the obvious out of the way with. The fact that, well, as far as the credits are concerned, and from all appearances, now, we don't know if there was some outside influence on the part of Mr. Favreau, but from all appearances, it would seem his fingers came nowhere near this property. And can we just say, that already off the bat starts from a really good place. The fact that he's nowhere near the creative process or the writing process. The further removed he is from this, the better, as far as I'm concerned. So that's number one. Now, number two, I still don't care. And to be honest with you, there's look. Yes, I will watch it. It's Star Wars. Duh, I'm gonna watch it. And yes, I love Ewan McGregor, and I'm happy for him personally that he has this. I haven't been taken with the trailers. If I'm being honest with you, I think some of the aliens look like trash. Like, I'm sorry, but I expect something, better for a live action Star Wars, and I think a lot of the adaptations with the Inquisitors just look bad. I'm tired of looking at Tatooine, which is basically all of this is. Oh, and if that wasn't enough, Kathleen Kennedy, and I would say maybe now in an infamous moment, at least for us, branded this show the rematch of the century. Which...
That definitely didn't help me.
And remember how it felt like to hear that? We were dead. Like that I feel like that almost kind of killed Star Wars, like pretty much indefinitely. So yeah, there's just like no excitement. I haven't liked the live action Star Wars shows. I haven't liked the Star Wars spin-offs. I mean, if I'm being honest with you, maybe it's just The Force Awakens and it's just The Last Jedi that I've really liked to love. As far as like new Disney...
Oh, as far as
live action,
new Disney stuff?
New Disney,
live
action realm, yeah, that's about it.
As far as I'm such a bitch for Star Wars. Even though the amount of Star Wars that I actually love is like so beyond tiny.
Yeah.
But I'm such a bitch for Star Wars. The amount that I can just put on and enjoy is like everything, right? Like I can throw on Solo, and it's like I don't think Solo is a good movie, but like they're doing stuff and they're in a game. Like there's so much of that. Is that the only one that really fucked it for me? Really was the shows. Like with the first season, 9. I was like, oh, yeah, episode 9. Yeah. Episode 9 came out. I hated it.
Yeah.
Like, I can't even watch that for fun.
No.
It's just everything about it is just annoying and shitty and just uncreative. Just devoid of soul. There's no soul to that film.
Go check out our audio commentary on it. That's fun. That was a fun listen.
I bet it was.
I would watch it just to have that playing over it.
I was kind of there with the first season of Mandalorian, where it's like I can watch them do stuff, but by the second season, I was just like, there's nothing. Again, devoid of soul. And then once we got to Boba Fett, Jesus Christ.
Wow.
Like, it's just
hitting new lows, huh?
Yeah. It gave me new appreciations for a Solo, the Star Wars story. I think that this Obi-Wan show will bring me back into the territory of like Solo, where maybe higher, because I do think the creative people behind it are good.
Yeah, Deborah Chow, she's a great director.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So maybe higher than Solo. Maybe we'll reach third act of Rogue One levels.
Maybe. I mean, we have to just start off in a place that it has to be better than Mando and Boba, because who's not.
I've already that's already a given in my mind. And looking at the trailers, it feels that way too, because when the characters interact, it feels like they're not just what do you call it? Like action figures?
Yeah, like a video game.
Yeah, they like just showed up and are just they just have like character lines that they repeat over and over. Like, it's not just Ahsoka that shows up like, I'm Ahsoka, be one with the Force. You know.
Bye.
Like Woody, you pull the string and he has lines.
Yeah.
That's how so many of the characters that come out in Mandalorian feel like. And you could tell there's like, all the character interaction is like, I'm Mando, I need to find this thing. Well, I can help you find that thing if you kill the creature in the river. And like, that's it. That there's just nothing.
That's all Jon Favreau, by the way.
Yeah, that's Jon Favreau. He can't write for shit. Here, when there's interactions, it's like, okay, it seems like they're trying to tell a story. And I know that's like the most basic anything, but it's more than those last two. It feels like the things that come out of their mouth aren't just trailer lines.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's a good line between Obi-Wan and Beru. Not Beru.
Owen, Uncle Owen. Yes, Joel Edgerton.
Yeah. Joel Edgerton, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because of course, and you could tell that Ewan's really pushing the Alec Guinness like voice.
Is he?
He's like, when he comes of age, he will be trained.
Huh.
And Owen's like, why? So he can turn out like you? Or he says something like, oh, like you trained his father? Like, basically Owen telling Obi-Wan, like, back the fuck up. Like, you're not getting near Luke. And I was like, oh, that's a good character interaction.
Mm-hmm.
And they're actually talking about something, right? And it's good. So there's little moments like that where I'm like, okay, cool. The idea, I mean, there's just fundamental things, though, similar to the Clone Wars, where it's like, no matter how good you do it, it just doesn't, I don't like it, and I'm just not gonna like it. Like, the idea of Obi-Wan and Darth Vader meeting, let alone seeing each other, let alone interacting, let alone fighting, in any way between episode 3 and episode 4. I just hate it. I don't think it works. I don't care what explanation you have for it, where it's like, well, technically, I don't like it. I don't. I just... Yeah. The best version of that, I'm just not gonna like. And that's just the way it is. So, we'll see. I'm not excited for it, but it's not just like, I'm like, I'll check it out. That's where I'm at right now.
It's not a Boba Fett where it's like, I don't care at all. But then you did see it, and then it was much worse than you even expected it would be.
Yeah. No, this is where it's like, we'll see. We'll, I don't think it'll be high, I don't think it'll be low, but I'll see.
So we talked a lot about Jon Favreau, or we mentioned his name. So last week you had mentioned to me to check out YMS, Your Movie Sucks, the YouTuber that does a whole bunch of this stuff, which is break down movies, has reviews, has a lot of channels. And he had a nearly 3-hour video essay.
Part 1.
Part 1, by the way, there's still more to come. Maybe we'll get it in 10 years. But part 1 of a video essay really breaking down Lion King 2019. I'm not going to call it live action anymore. Lion King 2019. And how uniquely terrible it is in every way imaginable and every way unimaginable. And I loved the breakdown. I loved his the way that he explained everything, all the different little things, and we'll get into all the little aspects, right, and a lot of the details. But it really, to me, my initial impression watching that was like, it made me feel like I gave the film too much credit when we initially reviewed it in 2019, which is hilarious because I gave the film no credit. If you go back and look at our review for that movie, I think it may be the single worst review we've ever had. As far as like this is like one of the worst movies we've ever reviewed on our show. And I think for you and me, because we discussed this, to me, it is the worst movie I've ever seen in a movie theater. Where I don't think I was even halfway through, where I just like stopped looking at the screen. I was just looking down at the floor, and I was just like thinking, I don't want to be here anymore. It actually hurts to sit here. God, oh God, please let this be over. And I can recall so many groans, so many eye rolls, so much just lifelessness surrounding me. Truly, what an awful ordeal. What a terrible movie. And what a travesty it is, because it is a remake of one of the best movies ever made. One of the most successful films ever made. The Lion King. And I don't think we fully appreciated how bad it was at that point. But now we do.
Yes and no. I think I argued very similarly at the time of why this was the worst. Because I think I even said something along like every decision was the wrong one. Like, it's just taking a fantastic movie and then changing everything to make it worse. I said something like that. But the surgical precision with which he dissects this film,
it's an autopsy.
There's so much stuff where I think maybe you and me felt it on a subconscious level, but no way would we like be able to point out a lot of these things without this video and the way he really gets into like, this. I mean, there's very basic things that we can point to, like the canyon scene where they falls and dies, and how ridiculous and terrible and devoid of any emotion.
I laugh every time. Ah! He's falling.
And it looks funny because it's like a cat.
I think you even said years ago when we first saw it that you were when we did the After Dark. We did After Darks at that point, but you said that you tried your best to contain your laughter when you saw that.
Yeah, it's so funny, so terrible, right? And there's a lot of filmmaking decisions within that where I can easily point out, like, this is better. Like, he talks about, like, the shadow that creeps over him and, like, the way, like, the camera when the young cub sees them coming down. It's just like, a lot of visual stuff. But he gets into, like, the tiniest little things, like the music changes, right? Where it's, like, maybe subconsciously...
we felt it, and we heard
that
it.
and felt it and affected it. But I could have never pointed it out. But when he points it out, it's so true. The way that music was made specifically for the scenes, the way they were drawn in that original film. Like, he says, like, I don't know if it's like the triangle or something, like, or for when Zazu is like flying over, like very specific moments and points, the music is intertwining with it. And here, it's the same music, but it's not, it's doing slightly, it's off, right? It's just slightly off.
Always. It is always just
Always
slightly off in a variety of different ways. Like, what's amazing to me is he points out that a lot of the microphones for the audio recording for the songs or dialogue were just not tuned correctly. It's just constantly peaking. That's just a technical thing that should have been caught, and it seemingly wasn't. On top of that, the mixing of the songs, let alone forget when you're hearing them on the screen, but when the mixing of the songs when you're hearing it is overbearing and too much. And you see in certain segments, Hans Zimmer made a point to bring in twice as many people into the room to mix the score as he did with The Lion King. And I think it's a great example of, like, he thought that making it bigger would make it better, and it made it worse. it was just too much. It was too loud. And then when you see it in the movie, not only is it placed in the wrong moments, which were important for character and narrative purposes, but it's also overbearing where it drowns out a lot of the audio from the characters. Yeah. And it's not just one moment. That was a great moment, that, the canyon and everything, but that's a problem that persists from beginning to end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no. And that's just like the tiniest thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's not tiny, it's a big thing, but it's, this movie is just, it feels like it's filled with every frame of the film is filled with a bad decision somewhere.
All of which were, came from Jon Favreau.
Yeah. It's insane. Like, some of the things I think he does such a great job of pointing out is the way that the character arcs are hindered.
Yeah.
Because they make tiny changes to the dialogue and the scene. They're just tiny changes to the dialogue. And he says, like, yeah, they probably figured it's basically the same thing. Changing this line here, just changing that line there. That doesn't do anything. But then he'll go in and be like, well, no, this is how the arc of the character and what it means for what happens later on gets completely fucked up. And yeah, it works. It's a really good review.
No, it is. I mean, very, very good. He even gets into how across the board, and it's incredible because they have a lot of like really talented people as the voice cast, but across the board, this voice cast sucks hard.
Yeah.
Like, and you get to a point where it's like, well, you know why they sound like lifeless and bored and like dead. Because that's how they were directed to sound like. Mm-hmm. Because Favreau was so like obsessed with the idea of making a realistic looking animated film that it forgets that it's an animated film. And so he thinks he's making a live action movie when he's not. And so he's directing all of his actors to give a very toned down, lifeless performance, which only confounds the issue of the characters having no facial expressions whatsoever.
And I mean, that's something everyone pointed out at the time. But it's what's great is that he goes through interviews, like, and he went through like hundreds of hours of interviews.
Yeah.
Just pulling out some great nuggets about like the reason for these decisions, or the reasoning for why no one has facial expressions. And it's funny, he recently, he has another podcast that he's on that he reviews films sometimes, and they were talking about Avatar, the original Avatar Blue People film. And he's like, this is the film that Jon Favreau wishes Lion King 2019 was.
That's right, yeah. Because they were all like treating it as like this technological achievement.
Yeah. And it's actually, it's very... and speaking of ugly, I love how he goes into this thing of like, well, beautiful skies aren't really realistic.
Wow.
So I told them not to have beautiful skies.
That's Favreau, from Favreau. He told his crew
that's what Favreau
not
said.
to do beautiful skies in the movie because he thought that was not real. Which, of course, that ends up being wrong.
But and just the arbitrary places you'll draw the line for quote-unquote realism, right? So
the part that
hilarious.
got me,
so
though,
terrible.
was Rafiki's stick.
Yeah.
I lost my shit. Because, not that I give a fuck that Rafiki has a stick or not, but they made a choice from his rationale to not have him have one from a realistic, quote-unquote, standpoint. But then there was a fight, and evidently that rationale went out the window because it would look really cool. if Rafiki had a
Yeah.
stick, and there was even a quote, and then like Favreau was giggling. It's like he has a lightsaber,
It's like it's lightsaber, and it's like, oh my god, this makes so much
and
sense.
it kind of like that when I heard that like something clicked, because then I can
Mhm.
piece back all the decisions that were made on Mandalorian and Boba Fett, and I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
wow, you just don't get it.
I could see him giggling as he suggests Boba Fett rides a Rancor. Like, that'll be really cool. But it, I love that moment because it's the two broken parts of his brain fighting against each other. The one broken side is like, we're making a documentary, which you're not. It's a musical with emotion and characters.
That's right.
What are you doing? Like this, like, you're not making a documentary. Like, you require facial expressions. But you have that side where it's like, it needs to be 100% realistic. So he takes away, his stick, but then the other, like, baby brained part where it's like everything is cameos and cool stand up and cheer moments. Because I remember in the movie, I remember the first time we saw it, it did play like this big momentous thing. Like, he goes to the tree and he takes it out, and it's like, it's his stick. Was anyone waiting around the entire movie, though? Waiting for Rafiki to pull out his stick? I actually think I forgot that he didn't have it for most of the film.
It's a fucking stick. It's just a fucking stick, and I think that goes back to the idea of like he just made a Marvel movie.
Yeah,
because like the one that really gets me is we see him in the opening of the film, but the first like scene with Mufasa and Scar, and he gets this like grand entrance where the music just builds up, and it's like I think he compares it to like Captain America coming back in Infinity War.
it's the same thing, right? Because it's like ba ba ba, like this big momentous music as Mufasa, right?
Yeah.
Steps into the screen, and out of the sunlight you see him, and it's like, but it's like that moment only means something to you if you've seen the original. Because it's like, why is it such a big deal? We just saw him 2 seconds earlier in the opening of the film. We saw Mufasa, right? And he goes into that, how it's like moments that are crafted for audience, not for the characters in the film, which make it weird, and to me it fucks with the film, obviously.
Yeah, also the arrangement of the songs themselves are also crappy. Like there's like this, I don't know, strange choices where certain notes are not in key. There's obvious auto-tune. Even good God. It's just the whole thing is just like it's an interesting like case study, right? Cuz like literally nothing in this movie went well.
It's a brilliant autopsy.
Yeah.
It's like, what killed this man? And then you find out it was everything. He simultaneously got every disease and stabbed and shot and ran over. That's what this film is.
Yeah.
It's like, what killed this film?
And it's incredible how like because it was a remake of a beloved film, this movie got such a pass. And then we all just moved on.
That's what happens. I noticed that with Disney. They get a pass, and then everyone just collectively just, okay, ignores it. There's no like retrospective on like, hey, those like past 5 live action Disney remakes you all went to go see and were screaming your head over? You all maybe want to take a second and think like, man, they all kind of sucked. Like, Should there be some sort of reckoning here? Like, what they... No? Okay, whatever. It's weird. No one wants to talk about it? Alright. Because you look at the Star Wars, you get a bad film. Oh my god. They won't stop talking about it.
No. And then, but Lion King is like, again, uniquely bad.
No, yeah. Worst film I've ever seen in a theater. Easily.
Okay, so speaking of Disney, there was a really, strange moment that happened on Disney Plus over the week. Evidently there was a Chip and Dale movie that came out, and I was really confused. Because I thought this was a series, not a movie. Then again, I didn't see the trailer.
You didn't know anything.
I didn't know nothing. Because, like, I don't know.
That must have been a shock going in.
Well, yeah, because, like, Disney Plus has such a horrible track record of, like, anything and everything. I don't ever see a reason to be, like, interested in what they have to offer. That's not, like, with the Marvel stuff. And even that, well, you know how I feel overall with that. But, I didn't know what this ended up being was something, honestly, that could exist in 2022. I would say a lot of this movie is just genuine shock that this actually was allowed to be into existence. And I feel like that in and of itself is a good thing. So...
There's a question in that statement.
No,
I
think it's ultimately a good thing because it did provide entertainment and humor there. So let's go ahead and get into this. Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers. Mr. Martinez will now get his phone, go to Letterboxd, and look up the synopsis for this movie.
Let me see if it's on the front. Oh, it is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers. It's not a reboot. It's a comeback. Decades since their successful television series was canceled, Chip has succumbed to a life of suburban domesticity as an insurance salesman. Dale, meanwhile, has had CGI surgery and works the nostalgia convention circuit, desperate to relive his glory days. When a former castmate mysteriously disappears, Chip and Dale must repair their broken friendship and take on their Rescue Ranger detective personas once again to save their friend's life.
The Disney Afternoon series was a really big thing, but at the time, I don't think I was born for I to have even been a part of it. I also didn't have the Disney Channel until like maybe 2004, 2005, because in those days the Disney Channel was considered premium TV. And like we had basic cable, so again, very different era. But a lot of yes, go ahead.
That lineup, though, I think is like early 90s.
That's why before I was born. So even if like I would never have had the opportunity to like see a lot of these big things, like I don't know, like Tailspin or Darkwing Duck or the original DuckTales, are evidently including this the show that is talked about in this movie. The original Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers. Like there was a lot of like that was the Disney Afternoon lineup that never really got me. I'm not even sure I saw any of those shows, honestly.
Me neither. No.
So, but they were very popular. So, yeah, that's interesting.
DuckTales, those are
why, again, like, they say it so many times it becomes ingrained in this movie. Because, like, after you finish the film, Disney Plus takes you to the page of the actual show, Chip and Dale, right?
Yeah.
Why is there only one out of the 3 seasons on there?
Oh, I have no idea.
But seriously, like, Disney, like, why do you keep doing this? Like, don't you own every episode of this?
Do you not own? Yeah, it's so
and wouldn't
weird.
you, like, I don't know, dump it the week that this movie, like, I don't know, like, you think it just capitalize the most out of these things, but
honestly, I just think they own too much shit. They have too much things to like keep track of, and it slipped the cracks.
What, people just forgot to upload it?
Yeah. They got other things to worry about. There are 50 million other properties.
Yeah, anyway. So you had said to me, check out this movie just because. And
Yeah.
I don't think by no means does it like come close to the quality of, the likes of Who Framed Roger Rabbit or the underappreciated masterpiece that is Looney Tunes Back in Action. Fuck off.
I agree with you there. I think Back in Action is very much slept on. I do not like
Yeah,
it.
not just slept on, it was viciously attacked in the trades when it came out, and it was like labeled this bomb, and it was awful. And I mean, I'm sorry, there's a lot of nostalgia for the original Space Jam. I enjoy it, but it's not half the film Back in Action is.
No, Space Jam is a bad film, but it's a wonder as a novelty.
It's an enjoyable bad movie.
Yeah.
I think Back in Action is legitimately great. I've always felt that way.
Yeah.
I think it's one of my favorite Looney Tunes things ever. And reminded me of why I love also Who Framed Roger Rabbit. And you have a situation with Chip and Dale, and that's not something I was expecting here in this story, where you have a take on these characters where, cartoons and humans live together and coexist, and it almost feels like it exists somewhere in the same pocket as Roger Rabbit does, weirdly enough. But this is taking it to a level where it's like, it's not just like Disney, shelling out its own properties for like cameos. There's something interesting here where they go and like, you see cartoon characters all across the board from seemingly every like studio or property imaginable.
Mm-hmm.
And you just didn't think, like, I never thought we'd ever see that again.
Yeah, they get some. You think like, okay, you're gonna see all the Disney animated characters. They get all kinds of animation.
There's this moment where they have the cats from Cats fighting in an alley.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, what the fuck? Like,
I mean, they have Batman in the film.
They do? What was Batman?
Yeah. They had that mock poster, Batman versus
Oh, that's right.
E.T.
Oh, yes. Batman versus E.T.
And then they showed him watching the movie. And it's like, E.T.'s like, E.T. forgive you.
I think there was a moment where, was it Dale? He was walking past the Hollywood Walk of Fame, and there was like, Squidward had his own star.
Yeah. Yeah.
There was a Transformer from the old Transformer animated series. There's an endless number of Easter eggs in here.
And I mean, the biggest surprise to me, I don't know.
Oh.
Because you don't really pay attention. Maybe you knew the internet. Ugly Sonic.
I know of Ugly Sonic because I saw the trailer.
Okay.
I mean, we all saw that first Sonic trailer.
But that's so weird,
Yeah.
right? Like, not only one thing, of course, Sonic is not it's not owned by Disney or anything.
No, I don't know.
But that was like this weird like internet cultural thing.
Yeah.
Where that first trailer came out with the ugly design and people complained, so like, okay, we're gonna change it. And they took that first design and like put him as his own character. That's so crazy to me. Like, that was insane.
Like, I never thought that would ever happen. And look, that there's something to appreciate. This is a character that's obviously from Sega Films, the Sega Games. Paramount distributed the movie. The Sonic films are, I mean, I think Paramount found their next cash cow with Sonic. They can keep making Sonic films to the end of time. The kids love Sonic, and those films have been very well received. And they've made so much at the box office. But for them to like let Disney have that, and it's a self-deprecating thing too, because like, the studio was kind of like shamed into dumping Ugly Sonic, as you said.
Yeah. But that's what makes it so funny. It was just this weird niche internet cultural thing, and then it just became I don't know. Well, there's even that gag with like Joe Rogan's henchman character, where he sees
You mean Seth
Pumbaa.
Rogen, not
Seth
Joe
Rogen.
Rogan. That's
Not Joe Rogan. No, sorry, different Rogan. Pumbaa, and I thought like, okay, that's the extent of the joke, obviously. But then they pull in his character Mantis from Kung Fu
right.
Panda,
Yeah,
and the blob from Monsters vs.
that's
Aliens.
so weird, man.
And I was like, whoa, okay.
That was not on my bingo card.
Yeah. And yeah, the different kinds of animation, because they have 2D.
Yeah,
They have 3D. They have claymation.
there's Muppets in here too.
They have like different kinds of CG. Yeah, they have Muppets. One of the cops was just a sock puppet that just like came over. Like they went through like every kind of animation you can think of, and they put it in there. So I was like, oh, wow, okay. Well, it was worth watching just to see the different places it was willing to go.
And it is nice to have like a property in this day and age where every studio is at war with each other and like hogging their IP. There was a time, that's how Roger Rabbit was, able to be made, where studios would like no problem share their IP. Now you never see that.
Well, not no problem. It was still a headache, but it was possible.
Well, compared to now, it's no problem.
Yeah.
Now it's
For
next
sure,
to impossible or completely impossible. So, for this to exist? And then I think to me, what was an even bigger shock was that Disney allowed these people, these evil geniuses here behind this movie, they allowed them to take what is perhaps one of the most synonymous characters in the pantheon of Disney. Like, you talk about Peter Pan. Peter Pan in many ways is part of the face of what Disney is and what has always been. And for Disney to sign off what they do with his character here is just not something I'd ever thought they'd ever allow. I couldn't believe it. It's like, whoa. How did this get past them? How did this get made?
But I mean, there's quite a few things. Yeah. It's one thing. It's like one thing that the way they portray like stuff outside of Disney, but then the way they portray stuff inside of Disney, like you said with Peter Pan, it's like, I'm surprised. Yeah, there wasn't a Disney executive that's like ran in. It's like, we're not gonna allow them to do this shit. Like, I mean, what they do to Flounder.
Oh my God, that was. And then also, I don't know if you caught it, but like there was a scene where Chip and Dale go to what is basically the black market, and it's like called Main Street. Which, if you're a Disney fan, you think Main Street USA from Disneyland.
I mean, it literally was Disneyland's Main Street. Or it was meant to evoke that. Yeah, especially because everything's like, oh, everything's hunky-dory, Disneyland, Main Street. And they're like, but behind the scenes, it's a dirty, disgusting, bad side of town. They're selling dirty cheese on the black market. It's like, God. You know what? Now that I remember, I think there was a South Park cameo.
There was a South Park
in, like,
cameo. Yeah, I couldn't believe that. There was Rick and Morty references, but there was a South Park cameo. Yeah.
Fucking South Park. What the
Simpsons were there, which is not surprising because Disney now owns them.
Yeah,
but South Park.
What's crazy is more than other studios signing off, because that is crazy. Disney even allowing like these like signing off on them to appear in the first place, right? Because you look at Roger Rabbit, of course Disney's gonna want Bugs Bunny in their movie. Of course they're gonna want Daffy Duck or Betty Boop, you know. But no, no Disney executives like, yeah, put Randy from South Park in the fucking. No, they're the ones going like, I don't know about this. Yeah, I mean, I love it's partly you could tell the team behind it was the Lonely Island.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know the Lonely Island with
Yeah, Andy Samberg's team. They
Andy
they were like a
Samberg's
musical
team.
act, but they previously had a film, Pop Star Never Stop Stopping.
And Hot Rod.
Mm-hmm.
I love Hot Rod. So I always find them really funny.
Yeah.
Which
Did they also do
they...
Palm Springs? Were they also like in the making of Palm Springs?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
No. I think that was just Andy Samberg. The humor here wasn't that great for me.
No.
It was okay-ish.
I'll say it this way. Yes, it was okay-ish. But by Disney standards, it was better.
It's a lot better by Disney standards, yeah.
But like generally speaking, I wasn't laughing a whole lot. I mean, I was laughing at just the weird cameos and the weirdness of it all.
Yeah, the entertainment came from the weirdness of the film.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're like a fan of Chip and Dale, the show,
yeah,
I don't know how much there is here for you. It's kind of like a goof on the show.
There's a reunion of sorts, I guess.
Yeah, the characters are technically all there. Technically. But as a film, it's definitely worth watching.
Oh, it's a must-see.
The weirdness of it, yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah.
That's kind of where we are. Okay, next we've got men.
Oh, I should bring it up.
Men, manly men. Men, manly men. 2.5 Men.
Men. Directed by men. What haunts you will find you. In the aftermath of a personal tragedy, Harper retreats alone to the beautiful English countryside, hoping to find a place to heal. But someone or something from the surrounding woods appears to be stalking her. What begins as simmering dread becomes a fully formed nightmare, inhabited by her darkest memories and fears. So yeah, men.
Yeah, so listen, before we get into men, look, we have to make a couple of things, I would say, very, very clear here. And that is, our past with Mr. Garland here. I think he is an extraordinary filmmaker whose talents have been horrendously underappreciated for a long time now. Yes, everybody saw Ex Machina, and yes, Ex Machina is a great film, an Academy Award-winning film, by the way. At least we forget that. But I won't forget how dirty Annihilation was done, because Annihilation is a tremendous motion picture. I'll say it. Mm-hmm. It's tremendous. It is
I really like
no shortage of amazing. And no one saw it, and no one cared, and no one talks about it. But from those two films, very clearly, is far beyond just a capable director, but one that is seemingly very adept at many skills that have come together to build a style of sorts. And you can tell from those two movies, he is someone with that knows how to operate, let's just say, a level of craft that you can associate with the word excellency. So there were some pretty sky-high expectations, I'd say, when it comes to Men with Alex Garland. And on the outset, it does sadden me that this didn't do better with the box office, because I thought the trailer was pretty terrific. I hope people weren't scared off by from general audience perspective, calling this movie Men may seem weird and confusing. I don't know what it is, but it's a horror movie. I think that would have been enough to draw people's attention, but apparently it wasn't. So there is. I do want to say that basically what I've been saying. I have a tweet here from Jacob Hall regarding Men. The what it's about is not as interesting as the how it's about. Few filmmakers build a visual and oral descent into the primal quite like Alex Garland, and we're lucky to have him. Deserves to be unpacked, critically so, but it demands to be seen with loud speakers. We have said that 2021 was just, we said it so many times over and over again, that year was an amazing year in movie. This year may be better. I'm going to say it pretty early on. It may be better because maybe there's maybe only one movie this year I had like major reservations with, and we all know which one it was. But that has a whole, like, its own can of worms, right? With it being in that particular franchise. I would say when it comes to original movies this year, I've had a blast. And I've been very taken with the overall quality of many of the different films that we've seen just this year. Whether it be The Lost City, whether it be Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, or The Northman, or especially Everything Everywhere All at Once. It's just been... This was, by the way, this was an experience, this movie. I think Breakfast All Day had it best. They put it best where they walked out of this theater after watching the film, not quite knowing what they just saw, but somehow still being mesmerized all the same. I won't forget, Peter, you and I, and Kyle, we walked out of this theater. We walked all the way to the car with not so much as a word shared amongst each other. It was just still very much in the trying to process what it was that we had just witnessed. But to state the obvious, I think the horror elements in this film are fucking great. I think Jessie Buckley is terrific. Rory Kinnear is creepy in all the right ways this role should be. And for my money, I had a really good time watching the film. I really did. There's a lot going on as far as like messaging is concerned, and it's come to my attention. There's been some avid argumentation and debate, as it were, the film Twitters and the people on there love to do that, about what exactly it was that this film was trying to communicate. There's even debate whether the movie itself knows what it was trying to communicate. I know in some ways it is supposed to be an allegory for Jessie Buckley and the tragedy that she endured that sparks off her trip to this place. But listen, I think from Alex Garland, for what it's worth, he has a tremendous capacity to make, something that is, shot in broad daylight. It's just, the English countryside, and then also the beautiful woods. He turns that into a nightmare.
Yes.
And I think that is an achievement, if I do say so myself. So I really liked the film. I had a really good time.
I think I had a very similar experience to you. I really enjoyed the film. I think it's beautifully directed. I think it's beautifully made. I'm not gonna sit here and tell you I know what the film was about entirely, but I think there are some very general ideas, I think, that are pretty clear in my head about what the film is about. Man, Alex Garland, he is someone. The one thing I like about him is he likes to lose his fucking mind in the third act, which is great.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
Which is fantastic. That's when you should lose your mind. Leave an impression. This one definitely left one.
Oh, yeah. There's some imagery, shall we say, here that I don't think I'll ever forget.
Would have been perfect for Mother's Day. Yeah, and also, I don't know if this is said very often. He always has fantastic scores.
Oh yeah.
I feel like the music and the accompanying mood that is set by his films are always really good. This one here.
This is I think it evokes a sense of being blown away, particularly in Annihilation.
Yes. But yeah, the performances are great. Jessie Buckley, that's the main woman. She's a fantastic actress.
Yeah, we saw her earlier this year in Lost Daughter.
Yeah, she's really, really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, as a whole, how I entirely feel about it, I don't know. But as a movie experience, it was really good. And again, it is that thing of like, I'm glad I can still go to the movie theaters and have an experience and be shocked and leave going like, I don't know entirely what I saw. It's becoming rarer and rarer. I mean, I felt that when we saw Annihilation. I remember my review being like, I'm just glad I was able to see this movie in a theater. And it's not like things have gotten better since then. Although Men is a much more traditional
horror movie.
So I was like, well, okay, but yeah, I had a good time with it. I was never bored. Really well made. And yeah, these are the kind of horror / sci-fi I want to see.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, just the idea, right? Like, this is you see it in the trailer, so not necessarily giving anything away, but just so you are aware, we may go into some spoiler territory here. But from the trailer, you have Rory Kinnear, who seemingly is like playing every man in the town. I would assume henceforth the name of the film, Men. And then Jessie Buckley, our main character here, is just seemingly unaware of the fact that every man in the town looks exactly the same. And so, yeah. And he also, Garland, I should say, wow, like he's really good at building suspense, isn't he? And getting you all anxious, just like, okay, what's next? What's next? He doesn't rush to it. He takes his time. But as you say, completely just like unleashes himself, if you will, in that third act. But I'll also say that with this one, it did take a good bit of time for some of the what I would associate to be horror movie red flags. Not like red flag is like, oh no, this may not be a good experience for me as a viewer. Red flag is in like movie characters and what to look out for and when to like run the fuck away. So there was, well, it starts off automatically with, you don't know what you're seeing. A man is falling off the roof, presumably to his death. Then we cut to the countryside. She takes a tour of this home that she's renting here for 2 weeks. And then, yeah, it's just, and it's a very like charming, wonderful, film. It's enjoyable. And then the first thing I think that just throws us off, and I remember just like, those like gasps, I think, just like, wait, what did we all just see? I think Jessie Buckley was FaceTiming one of her friends. And what do we see, Peter? I want you to describe this.
Like some demon face screaming. Like, I don't... Like, it's staticky, the phone.
Uh-huh.
And it's kind of cuts really quickly. And that, to me, I was like, I'm done. Like, ooh, no.
I would...
No.
The minute I see that, hang up, get in the car, and drive as fast as you can.
Yeah. That's what we call, like, a major hell no. Like, no.
That was bad.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was great in the moment that it came, but just like that shit was like, oh fuck. And then again, deliberate pacing. But the stuff that happens next is certainly not what I was expecting, but let's just say unsettling all the same. Which is when she goes on a wonderful walk in the woods, though she may not have been the wisest decision to go off on her own. Let's just say that. Because she happens to stumble upon what seems like to be this abandoned railway station. And she happens to, for whatever reason, lurk inside the darkness of it. And again, as much as you said that like a lot of the scores that accompany Garland's films are great, I feel the same can be said for the sound design.
Oh, yeah.
Because what the sounds that she makes in this tunnel, railway tunnel, if you will, and you think you would know it if you saw the trailer, like, if you hear that sound now, you'll remember where that sound came from. And that's from Men, and that's from here. But it turns out, Peter, and again, this is all from the trailer, so it's not getting it away, but she's not exactly alone in that railway tunnel.
No. When you see a shadowy figure stand up and start running, I was like, bitch, run.
What was she doing just standing there like that?
She was just kind of like fast walking. I'm like, no. You do not fast walk. You sprint.
You describing that moment, just, I'm not even kidding. There's like chills going down my spine right now because of how fucking scary that sounds like. This shadowy figure from across the way gets up. You see him get up. And then he starts running at you. That's like heart racing stuff right there. Yeah. Run! What are you doing?
Get the fuck out of there.
Oh my god.
And yeah, the horror stuff. Well, okay, I wanted to say it starts off very traditional.
Tame? Yeah, sure, yeah.
But that's kind of not true, because one of the first things you noticed is all the men in the town are played by the same actor.
Mm-hmm. Rory Kinnear here.
Mm-hmm. So obviously there's something, I don't want to say supernatural, but just
a miss,
off kilter, non-traditional in its horror.
There's something not right here.
Yeah. But it's not really until you get to the end of the second act that stuff starts to become like, is this even real? Is this all just sort of meant to be taken as symbolic?
Yeah.
What's going on here? Because there's no clear, like, it's this, or that.
No, that third act is insane.
Yeah.
I mean, before we even get to that, but I mean, what did you make of, what did you think this was going to be before we got to the third act? Because at first it seemed like it was going to be a stalker. And this is pretty, like, again, effectively done. She's running away from the shadowy figure. She goes all the way to the other end of this railway. She climbs up, and then this is pretty creepy too. She seems to stumble upon an abandoned camp / village, and there's like some pretty dark things that you feel in the air. And then she happens to get out of the woods and onto the field, and she's basically like scot-free. She doesn't see or hear anything. And then she turns around, she takes a picture, and what's standing there, Peter?
Penis.
Yeah. I love the reveal of that, because that was like, oh no. And I think it's even like creepier. He's just like standing there and
He's just
staring.
standing there. It's almost like he could have gotten to her this whole time, but he's just curious. He wants to see what she does, and it's just like, oh my god. And again, she turns around, doesn't look back, just starts walking away. And it's like, first of all, at this point, he's naked. You know something's wrong. Right? It's not just like some nice guy who wanted to say hi and be like, oh, are you visiting the village? No. This motherfucker is dirty. He's naked. Not a good time.
And he's chasing you.
And he's chasing you. But still, she's kind of, not hauling ass like I would say.
Yeah, she just walks away.
Just walks away.
I would be running, like, and you know what's interesting? Just like the thought process of all of that. She goes back and she doesn't like tip anybody off about that. Not until it comes back to her.
Yeah. I would have told someone.
Like
anyone.
Because that's bad news. I wouldn't want anybody else to stumble upon that. Because you never know.
And also, like, yeah, you don't know what's gonna. It's a small village, and he could potentially follow you home.
Which, guess what?
He did. That was a big thing when they reveal he's like in the behind her in the house. I was like, oh hell no.
And all that was like really good horror, and I would say relatively straightforward. The point where you realize that like every man is like played by Rory Kinnear. Things get even weirder where like she gets to the church. And then she has the discussion with like the father version of Rory Kinnear. What do you make of that exchange?
Well, that was at this point. I think in that part of the film, you're starting to sort of see like imagery, you know, where it's like, man, this must mean something. I don't know what it means, but it means something. Mm-hmm. Which of course sets up sort of her interaction with this version of men. And this is like right after the child, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I mean, if there was any criticism, that CGI could have been better.
Yeah, it wasn't the best.
Yeah, and I get it's difficult, but that's maybe leave that mask on a little more. But her sort of discussion with the father, that was great acting on both parts. Mm-hmm. This thing of her trying to finally get some stuff off her chest, and initially you really feel like, oh, this guy gets it. He's really piecing through her trauma and stuff. And then when he's like, you know, it must have hurt you to you must feel so guilty for pushing him to do that. Like that to me, it's like the same reaction as, you know, it broke my heart to put that tumor in her head. It's like, what? Like, what did you say? It's like, oh, you didn't give him the opportunity to forgive. It's like he fucking socked her in the face. Her ex-husband, well, dead husband.
Well, yeah, dead ex, whatever. Yeah, he socked her in the face, and she not just fell back, but she was pushed back from that strike.
Oh yeah, she was knocked on the floor.
It kind of it wasn't over the top, but it reminded me almost of *Malignant*.
Oh yeah, when just like boom into the back of her head. Yeah, but that's where it's like there's just something so sinister to everyone here in this town. I'm surprised they even had that female officer.
It makes you wonder, right? Like, what was her deal? Was she even there? Or was this all in like Jesse Buckley's mind? Or like, again, these are just questions that you have. Like, I mean, it wasn't in her mind because you see damage repeatedly throughout the film, like, which suggests it's real. But like, if every man looks the same, is that just the reality, or is it just the reality to whatever's tormenting Jesse Buckley right then and there? Like, I don't know the answers to these questions.
And I don't think there are answers to some of them. I'm gonna be honest. Like the whole was it real thing? Like, what was it? I don't think there's any answer to what it was.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I think there's only some answers to what it represents, what it means, Do you want to talk about the ending?
Let's do it.
In the third act, she's getting tormented by the men of the town. Why? They don't say. They just decide it's time to attack her. And every single one. And it's this thing of like, okay, this isn't... Every single one of the men are the same entity, basically. And I mean, you've already seen that visually with them all being played by the same actor, same face. But it's really hit home now as she's attacked individually because each one is the same. And by the end, and they're all attacking her in different ways. By the end, and again, I don't know what this is. I don't know what it means. They start to give birth. One of the men gives birth to another of the men. And that man gives birth to another of the men. And that man gives birth to another of the men. And it's not just... It's very detailed. Like full-on human anatomy detailed these births, and they're
no joke. You're watching a man give birth.
Yeah.
And it's in all of its detail. It's not as if like, oh, you see, like, oh, that's happening off screen. No, you see all of it. And Alex Garland makes sure you do.
He gets that camera in there. Yeah. Takes the phrase a bussy to a whole other level. And the thing is, they're giving birth to full-grown men. Not babies. Full-grown men. So it kills them. It's this unbelievably disgusting body horror type thing going on. I've never seen it before, but it was pretty incredible visually.
I guess that to me, it was pretty incredible visually. And I think comparatively, as far as disgusting is concerned, although I will say maybe this other film I'll bring in here maybe has like maybe it can't get more disgusting than that, but remember Society?
That's what I was thinking of.
Mm-hmm.
As far as like body horror, naked, disgusting nature, Society is still the most disgusting thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
As far as like a mainstream film, it gets real fucked up in there. And no CG, it's just writhing and jelly and body and oof. Not great. But here, like it's up there with just I've seen a lot of horror. You have seen a lot of horror. I haven't seen that.
No.
And what's so funny is by then, Jessie Buckley, her character, she's kind of fucking done.
Yeah, I love her reaction. She's just like, you know what? Fuck this.
Yeah, like she's not even like in horror or shock. She's just like, I'm
She just walks away.
this. Like, yeah. She's just trying to walk away from
Because it gets to a point where like, okay, you know what? Why are we here? What? Like, I feel like that's the character. Like in her mind is like, you know what? That's it. I'll wait for you when you're done with this over there. I think I would be too at that point. Like, you know what?
Yeah.
That's it.
And I mean, I guess to me, this is like the most obvious, like, you know, the phrase like all men are the same.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's the most obvious reading you can look into with a lot of that imagery of the sort of weird men, the weird way men are with women are sort of found everywhere. And that's what led to the destruction of her relationship and the end of the life of her husband. And it's something she can't escape, because to escape it would be to escape men, sort of thing. I kind of see that there, cause like by the end, when each man is giving birth to the other, and the way she's kind of like, I'm fucking done with this. It's kind of like a fight, right? Like a couple fight, and like one, it's just like, I'm done. Like, I'm trying to walk away. Which is kind of where you start with the movie, where she's trying to get a divorce, and he's like, I'll kill myself. I mean, a divorce, that's terrible, but like, not only are you saying you're going to kill yourself, but it's going to be your fault. Pretty toxic, my dude.
Seems like extortion.
Yeah. Love me or kill myself.
Your choice.
But yeah, similar, I think, to Annihilation, which in the months following Annihilation, there was so many fantastic
Video essays.
Videos and breakdowns into the meanings and the ideas behind Annihilation. They just all went over my head the first time I saw it. And I think the same thing's going to happen here. Where there's gonna be some great video essays on men, and I'm just gonna be like, oh my god, yeah, like I see it now, like this, that. There's little hints to things here and there that you see, but as far as like making too many connections, I'm not there yet. It's still sitting with me, and also I'm kind of dumb, so yeah.
That's a very that's something. I don't know if it's just me here, but I think I'm kind of dying.
All right,
it's okay. It's fine. I really like the film, and I, like you, feel as if like a lot of the stuff that was being telegraphed here, just I'm too dumb to understand it. So I look forward to the video essays that come out later in the fall. or maybe even in the late summer. Who knows? And maybe then it can make it, and dumb it down for the rest of us to see. But genuinely speaking, I'm kind of unbothered by the idea that I'm not like able to understand a lot of what's in the text, because for my money, I really enjoyed it. I really liked the film. It was a new experience. I appreciate them all more and more now. And yeah, that's just kind of where I land with the film. Absolutely worth the watch. I would say so.
I agree.
Well, with all that being said, we will see all of you next time here on Nerd Spotlight. Bye-bye.